So let's take some questions. If you would just put up your hands, we'll try to get to everyone. Well, while you're thinking, I would like to just ask one thing, if for Michael and perhaps Roman as well, any one of you. What do you have any suggestions of things you think we could do? And we, I mean, just anyone, wherever they are. I mean, you so well define how we got where we are. And and there are many things that we need to do if we're going to work towards oneness and understanding. And of course, we can define our history, and we probably do a good job at doing that. But I wonder if there are some suggestions that you might want to offer, or a suggestion of things you think any one of us could do in our lives that could help us toward understanding the beauty of our oneness, and with that energy then to do things to bring us together, because we are a very divisive kind of society right
now. Charles, excellent question. Thank you. Going back to the top, inescapable obligation, looking at it historically, very different time now than it was before, but we still have that same obligation to do our part, to have support, to provide support for distinct communities. I think the one thing we can do, Charles, is to start by looking at our own communities. You mentioned when we started, how many of us really truly understand our neighbor, or those across town, or those that live in a different or part of the city that we live in? Do we really understand those issues that people are dealing with in our own communities? And I don't think we do. So it's about creating that sense of unity to bring about social change, Charles, through loving communities focused on unity, on dialogue, on discussion, on education, and then at the end in action, putting all that into action. But I think it starts with what you are doing and this organization is doing, to bring people together to truly understand each other, and then put that into action in our own communities. And through Zoom, this is a very powerful media that we have now, that we can do this. Whereas before we'd be limited to our own, physical space, and where we could actually talk and meet, and that was limited. Now it's not limited any longer. In fact, we have more freedom to do much more.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. I saw one comment or question in the chat. I think it came from Elbar. Do you want to say something about that?
Well, I put the question in the chat because I don't want to create a dialogue of negativity, but I'd like to wonder why the speaker was saying he didn't want to assign fault. The first point of racial reconciliation is for the offender to admit the offenses that has taken place. And you can't hide behind the facts are that whites have been the most violent and aggressive people on this earth. They committed genocide against the American Indian. They enslaved Black people and brutalized Black people in America. And until you come to a reconciliation with that, to speak the truth about what actually happened in this country, then you can't reach any point of reconciliation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Elbar. Appreciate the question. And that's why I wanted to specifically highlight, as you said, the historical significance of these two groups and what they faced individually and what they faced together, and how they have tried to overcome these horrific, indescribable, historic issues that they have faced. I think the first thing is that is that there has to be an acknowledgement. We have to acknowledge that, as looking at it today, we have to acknowledge a problem exists. And I think going back, and hopefully the talk did this, is to understand the historical significance. So we can't only just say, oh, racism exists, let's end it. But we also have to understand the historical significance, and hopefully this came through as well, the spiritual significance, the spiritual void that exists, given that quote by Dr. Elsie Austin, that it essentially is a spiritual issue that transforming these souls and these spirits. In the Baha'i faith, there is there's a focus on the refinement of an individual and on acquiring virtues. And acquiring virtues such as kindness and selflessness and courage and trust and being service to others. And the acquirement of these virtues is not for salvation in the Baha'i faith, and it's not for redemption, but it's to advance our world that we live in, to put these virtues into action, to reflect in how we can engage society and move forward, and to develop a society in those same type of virtues. And I shared this before to our Christian brothers and sisters. I know in the Bible, in Matthew 6:9-13, if we're looking to develop a society in that same image, in the Bible, it says, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, that shall be done on earth as it is in heaven. Baha'is have that same ideal that we are working towards. And it says, that which God willeth shall come to pass, and thou shalt see the earth even as the most glorious paradise. So I hope this talk will inspire all of us to work together, to truly acknowledge the historical issues that Abdul-Baha mentioned, but to work together and fill those voids that need to be filling. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Manu and then Van.
Good afternoon to everybody. And first of all, I would like to thank Michael, who diligently made this talk and talked to us about that, which I myself enjoyed it very much. And no matter how many more he's going to repeat it, I'm going to listen to that. That's beautiful. But one thing that came to my mind is that in this time in the world, when people are pulling away from each other, getting polarized, and instead of being close to each other, they are finding the ways to get against each other. This kind of talks and this kind of activities is the best for ourselves and for our next generation to try to bring people together. And I believe that as much as Baha'is enjoy this kind of talks, our friends who are new to the faith, they don't know about it, and they need this the most. The people out there are waiting for this kind of talks and this kind of experiences from a person who lived through all these, whatever Michael talked about, to hear about that and to feel differently about each other. And for each of us who are present in this meeting, I think to help Michael and to help humanity, we have a great duty to transfer this talk to other people who are not present here today, either by inviting them to talks like this, our friends, our families, or to send the link to this talk to them and let them know, let them hear about what Michael had to say and whatever Ramon is going to talk about tomorrow. I think this is the best way that we can help Michael and help each other and help humanity. That was my suggestion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Manu, I also wanted to just mention that these spaces are really designed to look at issues that are facing our society. And we know that they are multifaceted and they're open to everyone. People who come to them are members of various faiths. Some may be members of the Baha'i community, some may be members of other religious groups, or that may not be part of any faith community. And certainly all are welcome, because it's going to take everyone to change the climate of our country. And so that's what it's doing. That's why it's happening, to attract like-minded people so that unitedly we can work to make the country and the world what it should be. So everyone is always welcome, and we appreciate everyone's suggestions. And thank you so much. Yes, the next question was from Van.
Greetings to everybody. I have so much deep in my heart that I want to know, and I don't know. I don't have it phrased. I don't have it so that I can ask it the way I really feel it. But I'll try, because those of us who have for so long had our history hidden from the rest of the country, that it has made it very hard, particularly for me, made it very hard for me to come to a place where I feel inclusive when I'm talking about the African American, because I have long known about the American Indian. And just like Indigenous people, you've got as many names as we've had as Black people. I grew up being colored, and then a Negro, and then a Black person, and then African American, and I know all my life I've known Indian. Then I have tried to get it right. I said Indigenous. Was it the Native people? At some of the sessions we've had when we talked about African Americans, it has felt like we haven't included an original group here that we know nothing about. My teaching about an American Indian was cowboys and Indians. I as a Black person in America felt for a bit like I might be white. I mean, I knew better because I was living in a segregated community. But I'd go to movies, and the movies wouldn't have Black people in them, but they would have white people and Indians. And I'd go, and somehow we were made to cheer for the white man who was getting the Indian. And deep in my heart and my community, I ran into so many folk in my early life who said, you know, my great grandmama was an Indian. It was with proudness that we talked about some of our heritage that is native. And now, as we are approaching to dare to talk about ourselves and try our best to correct a history that is so wrong, and it's been so wrong for so long that we don't know each other. And so when I'm talking about all the stuff that I'm just learning about myself, about my own people, and I might not even be inclusive of the people who I used to call Indians, who I've never hated. But so I told you I don't have my question. I can't frame my question the way I want to frame it. But I want to be able to, without any guilt, talk about what has happened to the Black man in America and what we need to do. But I don't want to exclude American Indians. And as time has passed, I found that I have to think even beyond just Indian or indigenous, because there are different nations that I don't fully understand, and they might have different languages, and I didn't understand that. And they may have something that is different from one nation to another nation. And I'm trying to understand the parallels, because I want us, as you said, Michael, I want the ultimate thing that I think all of us want, and that is for us to be one, for us to learn to love everybody. And if I talk about African Americans, I certainly am not eliminating all of those in America who have been so beat upon, so lied about, so not included. So how do we deal with this as we go forward? Because perhaps there are others who want to be inclusive, want strongly to be inclusive, but know so little about each other that it's become difficult to have a conversation that feels inclusive and loving. So maybe you can find something that you can say after I've said all that to kind of help me and anybody else who is like me, who is on the path toward unity and finding all these hurdles, all these streams to jump over. I hope you can kind of feel what I'm talking about.
Van, I want to thank you. Let me start by first thanking Dr. Sabat for her kind words and her continued support on this talk, and I appreciate her perspective. And so thank you, Dr. Sabat, for that. Van, I'm touched. I'm inspired. Your sincere thoughts, your heartfelt words. I understand where you're coming from. When I put this talk together and I was asked to do a talk on race unity, I didn't want to give a traditional talk on race unity on quotes alone and say, this is what we should be, this is how we should do it. But I wanted to dig a little deeper and look at the historical perspective of our world and these two groups, these segments, these two communities. Because when I look back at this, and that's why I included James Baldwin, because Van, it was a Black man, an activist, an author and activist who inspired me, a kid from a small town growing up in the middle of nowhere, to read and to hear that and I say I'm not alone. I felt included. And when doing this, like you, I didn't want to be excluding. I wanted to be inclusive. I wanted to have this shared humanity, not to be a slogan, this idea of we are one people, as you absolutely stated, not a slogan. It's a reality. It's who we are. And so I feel that when putting this together, it was not about as a Native American perspective, but I had to include other segments of society. And there are many others that are not included that can absolutely be included. My Asian brothers and sisters and so many others in this conversation. But I absolutely feel your sincerity. I'm hopeful that we can move together in this to truly understand each other, Van, because I found out a lot about the African-American perspective, and I found out some of my own perspective in doing this talk. And I can only imagine how much more we can all gather and all come to understand about each other if we just dig a little deeper and if we just took a little bit more time to truly get to know each other. So I thank you. Yeah. Absolutely thank you for those sincere and heartfelt words. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michael. So we were talking about being intentional. If we're not intentional, it's not going to happen. We have to intentionally put ourselves in these spaces. Okay, we had Claude, and then Scott, and then Amelia. Claude, do you want to go ahead? I think you're muted there, okay?
First of all, I'd like to thank my dear beloved sister Nadima Agard for sending me this email. My sister, I'm from New York, she's from New York, and she's always included me. You know, my mom I'm from Carolina, my mom would always say that I have Indian blood. She was part Cherokee, but she said, I have Indian blood running through my veins. Mm-hmm. My mom was a domestic worker. And I remember several times she would come home from work and maybe she was working for a different white person. And she was so insulted because my mom's name was Lena. They would say to her, Lena, do you know you're Indian? You have part Indian? They start to talk about her features, you know, your cheekbones, look at your hair. And she would come home so insulted. But, you know, as a domestic worker, she did not have the voice to say to the woman what she was really feeling. So she would come home and say that to the family. And like Van, I remember every time I think about it now, it brings tears to my eyes, how we would go to the movies or watch TV and yell out, shoot the Indians. And here I am, my mother. My mother wasn't one to watch movies or go to watch TV, but my dad. And I remember hearing my dad say it and myself saying it. And now as an adult, understanding who I am and gaining a better understanding of who I am in terms of the Baha'i writings as an African-American with Indian blood, as my mother would say. I'm just so grateful. And again, Nadim, I want to thank you for inviting me, because I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Thank you. Thank you all for what you've shared. I've learned so much and just touched my heart.
Thank
deeply.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. Amelia.
Oh boy. This Indian story goes way beyond the United States. I'm from the Caribbean, Jamaica, and we grew up with Indians. And I look back, it was in my adulthood that I even learned that the names that they were called weren't even their proper names, and the classifications they were given were never their classifications. So, you know, this lie, I call it the big lie, has been a long time coming. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your presentation. My feeling, you know, every time I hear these stories, I keep asking, what is it that is preventing us from moving closer to each other? Something by design happened that caused us to be so divided, and we are continuously being divided. And so there has to be a concerted effort on all our part to break that divide, or else we're not going to go anywhere. The other thing that I want to say is, somebody who has the connections need to start creating paths to connect us. Because like Van said, all Blacks are not the same in terms of maybe their places of origin, their experiences, and all of that. So there's a divide even within that divide. But let me just say this: education is the key. Travel is the venue. Travel is the vehicle that we have to take. I intentionally travel not to be a tourist, but to learn the culture of people. And if we want to break this divide, we have to get up out of our houses, get in our cars, and drive to places where people are that we don't know anything about, but would like to know.
Thank you for that, Amelia. Greatly appreciate that. As you correctly stated, you know, looking at the Caribbean, Jamaica, Trinidad, the history, it absolutely is there as well. The Arawak, the Taino, so many others faced similar history. And I agree. We must welcome all people, as you said, and to collaborate, as you said, in a sustained and concerted effort to bring about a new framework for justice and equality. And as far as travel and education, it's good to be uncomfortable. We can learn a lot being uncomfortable, being with some time, some place, it doesn't have to be far. It could be on the other side of town that we have yet to see, and the new segment of people we have yet to discover to be part of that community. I absolutely agree. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Scott.
Thank you so much, Michael, for the presentation. I've been listening, and I really wanted to address Mr. Labar's comment, because I think it's so important as a person of European descent that we people that come from this background understand the history of African American suppression and oppression in this country, as well as the Native Americans in this country. And I've been a Baha'i for, I don't know, 40 years. Let's say I've been a Baha'i for about 40 years. And I have seen this attitude on the part of members of the Baha'i faith and members of other religions that are of European descent that just don't want to talk about this, and they don't think that learning the history is important. But I feel strongly that you cannot understand and get to the point of unity in these communities if we don't understand the history behind what has happened and what the structures and the systems and the laws and the history of a country that was really founded by people of European descent have done to these communities. And if we don't understand that, it's very difficult to reach a point of unity and to have any kind of motivation really to learn how to overcome those things and to understand what people of color in this country are going through. So I just wanted to address that with Mr. Labar, that I agree with you. I think it's okay to understand as a person of European descent that yes, there are terrible, terrible things that people from this background have done. And I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Scott, thank you for your sincere words about acknowledging the past. I appreciate that coming forward. Thank you.
Great. Nadima.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I'm a Baha'i. I'm a native believer, indigenous believer of 43 years. I came across the writings the other day, and I paraphrase, it talks about spiritual and physical brotherhood. And it really resonated for me because we have our Native American medicine wheel. On the medicine wheel, we have 4 colors: white, red, yellow, and black. The red and the black are on the horizontal axis. Okay. The white and the yellow is on the vertical axis. And it's interesting because there's like each color represents an aspect, whatever aspect we're talking about. So we have that aspect of the human being who has mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical aspects. Well, it just so happens that on the medicine wheel, the spiritual, which is the Native American, and the physical, which is the African American, is on the same horizontal axis. So I was trying to explain it to friends that there's an understanding that in the traditions of people of the African diaspora, a lot of times in those churches, when they receive the Holy Ghost Spirit, they get very physical. So it's a very physical manifestation of the spiritual. And so I thought it was very interesting that in the medicine wheel, we had spiritual and physical work on the same axis, and that it was mentioned in the faith, but it represents that bond between the African American and Native American, because we're both on the horizontal axis, the maternal, the mother axis, and the Caucasian and the Asian are on the paternal axis. So it explains a lot of things. It explains Hitler and Hirohito because they were on the same vertical axis. So I've been involved in talking about the similarities of our people because we come from tribal societies, both in Africa and in America, and we have more things in common. And Native Americans who have gone to Africa come back and say, wow, they're just like us. There's so many similarities in Africa with the traditional tribal society and indigenous people in the Americas. And so we have that bond, we have that closeness, so to speak. We have that closeness because we're both people that come from tribal tradition. And at the same time, we're both people that have been terribly oppressed. Because as Barbara Talley said, stolen people on stolen land, you know? So we have shared the same kind of pain as well, but we definitely have a connection, a bond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, Yolanda.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this. And thank you, Michael, for that amazing presentation. I had posted just a small comment in the chat because I am of mixed heritage myself, And because I didn't know as much about my native culture as I would like to, the part of the country where I'm from is mostly the Cherokee Indians were here. And my great great grandmother was a child on the Trail of Tears. And so my loved ones who have more or less shared that story with us have now all passed on. And so I want to be able to learn more, and just listening and being in this space was just amazing. And so the sister who just spoke about the medicine wheel, that just truly blessed me. And it makes so much sense to me because, just it just does. It just truly resonated with me. So thank you to everyone who has presented before. But if you all have ways to kind of share that, or have, other avenues that you connect with, I would love to get that information. So I'll be able to pass that on to my children. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. And thank you for sharing your fascinating history, family history with us as well. So thank you for joining us and for sharing. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I wanted to just remind us that, again, that Roman will be with us tomorrow. Roman, you want to say anything about tomorrow to kind of give them a teaser of what's going to be happening?
Sure. Tomorrow I have a video that will be highlighted. It'll be a good chunk of the talk. I'll give a little bit of brief history. I'm sorry. I'll give a little bit of brief prophecies, and about Indigenous peoples and the Baha'i faith specifically, as I am a native Baha'i, along with the rest of my family, my brother included. And so I'll do that. And then I have a video that is part of a performance that I have created, talking about prophecies and about those things. There's not a coincidence that, as Michael stated, Abdul-Baha said, that the NSA and Abdul-Baha talked about specifically the Indigenous peoples and the African American peoples. And along with the prophecies of Indigenous peoples, like the medicine wheel. Yeah, it's time.
It is time. It's time.
Can I just ask Michael a question quickly?
Sure.
Michael, I don't want all that you said to just lay here on Zoom or on a paper someplace. I just wondered if you and the people in your surrounds, your connection with the Native American people, would it be possible to organize a series of trips to different reservations to help those of us who want to learn about the people in that area, to take trips and learn and connect, if possible?
Emilia, I again, thank you for that idea. That's a wonderful idea. That's it's something I would love to investigate further with my family and with others that live in proximity to reservations. Most definitely something to discuss. I would also highlight that a majority of Indigenous peoples actually live off the reservation. So majority actually in the United States are what we call urban Indian, but there are a number of cultural organizations in most major cities. And I would encourage folks, if they don't live in proximity to a reservation, that they can reach out and work and contact these organizations. I'm sure they would be happy to invite you to cultural events where you can meet and get to understand the beauty of a new culture, of a new people. So while we try to figure out how we can do such a wonderful idea. A trip like that would be absolutely amazing. I would encourage people not to wait, but to look to opportunities even in urban areas. And there are a number of them. I know I used to live in Chicago, and there were a number in Chicago. And I know that in New York City and many other places.
Florida, you have a lot in Florida as well.
Yes. So encourage you to reach out to investigate that. But that's a wonderful, wonderful idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, David.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Charles, for bringing these gentlemen to talk with us. And thank you so much, Michael. What a wonderful presentation. I wanted to just say one thing about the question earlier, which is a very good question. I think we're all struggling with it, which is, not only recognizing the history, but acknowledging, where this problem comes from. And I think it's very important that we do that. I think at the same time that I love, Michael, I love the way you make this presentation. It's just full of love. And, I think that when we're in a mode, and there's so much of this going on, where we're in a mode where we're blaming, the separation tends to get wider. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't know where the problem emerged and what the problem is, but when we point to that to begin with, I think sometimes it makes it difficult to even have the conversation. And so I love just the spirit with which, like, everybody's question was greeted, everybody's comment was greeted by you with love and with respect, and understanding that, hopefully that those of us who are here, we do want to learn, and we want to get our arms around this. I'm looking for just a very short quotation. This is from the Universal House of Justice, which is, as you mentioned before, Michael, the international governing body of the Baha'i faith. And in it, it's a recent letter, actually, to the American Baha'i community, talking about racism, this horrible disease. And in it, they write, ultimately, the power to transform the world is affected by love. Love originating from the relationship with the divine, love ablaze among members of a community, love extended without restriction to every human being. And I'm thinking, you asked earlier, Charles, like, what is something that we can think about doing? And I just had a thought that occurred to me. We're going to have the benefit of Roman being here tomorrow. I'm going to think about, like, who I can call that doesn't look like me, that is different. None of us are really different. We're one. We're one. But we've created, as you said in your talk, Michael, that. And I think I'm going to try to invite somebody that doesn't look like me to come tomorrow, to join me tomorrow, to hear Roman. It's a small thing, but perhaps we could think about how we could begin to do that. And thank you all so much. Really, it's just wonderful presentation and program.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate that. It's not a small effort. It's a huge effort to invite someone that you're absolutely right. So thank you for doing that. I agree. It's definitely important to acknowledge the past, and I did not want to just tiptoe through this horrific history that exists. It's important to acknowledge the past, but I fully agree. What is our way forward? How can we move forward as a human family to overcome these issues? Yes, we have to acknowledge it. As you said, I really believe that we're all better if we focus toward the unified humanity. Our goal is to focus on the good and how we can together create a better society as our goal and our objective. So thank you for your comments. Greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. I just had the thought of what you started with us today, Michael, was the idea that that there are minorities who have been given a specific role to play in bringing about this consciousness of oneness in the world, and that Indigenous people and people of African descent have a particular role to do in that process. And so if there are any one of us, whether we're Indigenous, whether we're African American, whether we are not, then anything that we can do to cause the connection, then that's a step forward. So if there is whatever I am, if I can, I have to look in my community, look across town, look at the next state, where are there Indigenous people? Where are they? Do I know who they are? If I don't, then I have to consciously do something to find out. If I'm Indigenous, the same thing acquires. It's going to take us working together, all of us working together to bring about the change. I think that's what it's being said here today. So it starts with little steps. One of the things that we mentioned is that Partners in Racial Justice has a series of oneness chats, race unity portals. And again, it's a space wherein diverse people from different backgrounds can come together, first of all, in the same space. And if we can get in the space, that's a big step. We'll start with that. If we can get in the same space, then we have to figure out what to say, how to say it, and how we can encourage each other and all of that. But first of all, let's just get in the space. So anyway, there's a series of these spaces that have been prepared. One happened last week. There'll be another one on the 22nd. So consciously, we're trying to put spaces, make them available, or at least where we can at least come to one place, and even to sit on a Zoom and to see each other's face. And sometimes I know some people, we don't see their faces there, but we see their names. So we know that they decided to come to this space. So that's a step forward. So every effort is necessary. Every effort is necessary. And we look forward to all of us working together on this path to see who we truly are, beautifully diverse peoples on this small planet. And if we're able to appreciate the beauty in that, then the planet will be as it was intended. Beautiful people working together to live in harmony and get rid of all the terrible things that are going on. So we encourage you to join us in those. Also, if you have activities that you're doing, things that you have that you're a part of that you think will be beneficial, then let us know. We can certainly help to support them, advertise, and let people know about them. Because the more we put that out there, then that's more positive energy in the world. Well, we want to thank you all again for being here. Michael, thank you so much. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful path that you're taking us on, and we're so happy to be there because it's all our past. And we look forward to tomorrow seeing Roman and have him to present for us. And each one of you, I'm sorry we don't have time to let everybody say who you are and where you're from. We'd love to know all of that. But if you want to continue to be part of these, and I know you do because you're here, then please go to Oneness Chat, register. You can get information about our newsletter and programs that are coming up, and to be a part of that. And hopefully anything that we have that Partners in Racial Justice is doing and designing, those programs will be available for you to use as well. So please come and check them out. And thank you again, Michael and Roman. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and thank all of you for coming.